This is the captain.
Oh my god.
It's Kurt.
Call me Snake.
It's Snake.
The name's Pliskin.
It's Pliss.
Stuntman Mike.
Really? Really?
Wait a minute, I'm a reasonable guy, but I've just experienced some very unreasonable things.
Trust me, the old way's the best way.
See what happens.
It's Kurt Russell month here on Somebody Told Me to Watch. No! Hello and welcome to Someone Told Me to Watch This, a movie podcast for those in fear of credibility. If this is your first time with us, I'd like to say welcome. If you're returning, I'd like to say thank you. But as always, if you learned anything from us, it was purely accidental. I will be your androgynous god today, Mike D, and I will set forth on this second week of Kurt Russell month. I have brought some of my best squad mates with me. She looks good in a half shirt like the rest of the cast, Jenny D.
Hello.
He is the Egyptian god of all corgis, Janos P.
Ahoy.
And she was created with the most sophisticated 90s CGI, Britt K.
Hey there.
And today we're going back to the 90s to Stargate, a later Kurt Russell film, but arguably one of his worst? Let's find out how we think. Alright, that works. Going straight into it. Overall feelings of the film. I don't like this movie. I find it boring, drawn out, and there's really no characters. Like, you have two main characters. You have Daniel Jackson, and you have Kurt Russell's character. And
Jack O'Neill.
Jack O'Neill. And everyone else is arbitrary. There's no development. They barely talk. And they do, for lack of a better word, they're just there to gawk. Like Encino Man was in the back. I'm sorry. I don't know whether we should bring him up because I feel like it might
Who
be
is Encino Man?
the one goofy-looking
The
tribesman.
guy that looked like he was slow.
Oh, he looked like he was like a short guy.
I don't
like
know whether
they
he
wanted to pull off as a kid. That he was definitely an older guy.
I thought
Definitely
he was.
an older short guy.
I thought he actually had a handicap, so I kept trying not to laugh at him because I thought he was in real life
I
handicapped.
think maybe he did have a handicap.
But the film takes every opportunity to pan in on him, almost like he's comic relief, which was so odd. I was like, is he actually slow in real life, and should I be laughing?
We could Google it.
I think it's actually, since I laughed, it might be better if we don't Google it. How about you, Noosh? What did you think of it?
So, when I was a kid, I saw this and I'm like, alright, you got Egypt, you got Egyptian stuff, and you got flying spaceships and everything else. I was all for it. When I was a kid, I watched it non-stop because I was just like, this is awesome. It's Egyptian stuff and everything else.
Really? You've seen this that much?
Yeah. And now that I'm older and I'm watching it again, there are some things that I'm appreciative of it, and other parts of it I'm just like, they really didn't need this in here at all.
What are some of the parts that made you appreciate this film?
I guess just the way they were trying to do the dialect and everything. The fact that it wasn't that you just walked in and, oh, they're Egyptian, so they speak Egypt.
Egypt.
So they speak Egyptian.
Yeah.
They hold up an atlas.
Indeed.
Egypt. They're like a Pokemon. All their dialect is brought to you by one word, and that is Egypt.
But, no, the fact that they actually decided to give it some kind of language barrier. I mean, in the same aspect, it kind of drew out the movie a little bit, but there are many scenes that I don't think needed to be in it, or there was so many cutting back and forth from one part to another part, back to the original part, for just even momentary, minute purposes that made no sense, which I don't think needed to be in. I mean, movies at 2 hours long could easily be an hour and a half, or at the very least, had that extra half an hour or something that seems a little bit more palatable for supposedly an action movie.
Yeah, it's a long 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Britt?
I didn't think it was that bad. Especially compared to the first Kurt Russell movie we saw.
Really? You
Oh,
prefer
the
this
China
over
one.
Big...
I definitely prefer
Big
this.
Trouble in Little China.
And you as well, Jenny.
Well,
Wow.
of course
There
you
was,
know
there was no,
I like
there
this
was no
movie.
extreme overacting in this one from Kurt Russell.
Yeah,
It was a bit more subtle.
it was very underwhelming. He had, like, what, 3 paragraphs worth of dialogue in this film?
Oh.
Yeah.
Serious military.
And he is top billed. He is the main character.
Yeah, it's kind
You
of
can
another
argue.
one like Big Trouble in Little China where he was top billed, but his character really wasn't the top character. Like it definitely focused more on Daniel Jackson than it did on Jack O'Neill. This movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is...
Which is how the other movie was, too, that we watched with Kurt Russell in it. Big Trouble in Little
Yeah.
China. Yeah.
I only say he's first billed, but he is
Right.
not the
Yeah.
main character.
But it was kind of refreshing to see him in a more serious role than, like, the goofy role he had the last movie we watched.
So your overall feeling of the film is you liked it, right?
Well, you know I like this movie.
you are a diehard.
Yes, I love this movie. I've seen it about 5 or 6 times. I mean, I recognize that there are parts that are boring. I mean, there are definitely parts that are boring.
Ooh.
But I really like this movie a lot.
Wow.
I think it's, yeah. I
You
think
are a
it's fun.
trooper.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god. Well, let's get into it. Since the month is named after him, Kurt Russell. I don't like him in this film. There's some parts where he actually comes out as Kurt Russell. Like his quips at the end when he's finishing off a bad guy. But most of it, he's just too serious. I find his character very bland, one note, and just unlikable.
Yeah, the development they tried to seem to give him in the beginning with the fact that his kid killed himself accidentally with his gun.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, so you got some deep storyline going in here, and then it doesn't go anywhere pretty much throughout the movie.
Yeah, he's suicidal and everything.
He's definitely, you can definitely see that it's there. Like, you can definitely tell that he's damaged and troubled, and that's why he's so serious and not really up for joking around or, anything like that. I mean, when the kid grabbed his gun, he was, he definitely came out then.
But
Because
then
you
it was,
could definitely see
That
it
could
was
be
like...
And that was it.
Any military movie. It's like, okay, your high commanding officer's given this particular job, and even if it means his own death, he's gonna do it. And if you have some random kid grabbing a gun, you're gonna be like, nope.
Like anybody, even if he didn't have that backstory, you would be like, no, don't touch that.
yeah, the kid thing was never mentioned again at all throughout
Not really.
later in the movie. When it could have been just in passing, someone could have asked, "Yo, why is that guy such a hard ass? Why is he being such a dick?"
They did that with those
Could
two
be like,
guys
"Yo,
that...
chill. His kid killed himself by accident."
And that was such a bad way of telling us that that's what happened. Like, the two guys, literally, we just followed them for the biggest dump of exposition. Yeah, his kid killed himself with his own gun. With the sergeant's gun. And not to make light of that situation, but dude, you can make another one.
It's not the same.
No, it's not the same.
No, you always have favorites when you have kids.
No, and then
No, it's not
and
the
then when
same.
you see that kid, you're always constantly reminded of the one that you lost, and you're always subconsciously comparing the second one to the
That's
first.
true.
one.
That's why you need a third one. And you can do that too.
And then the kid catches on eventually and just becomes resentful.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Never the same.
Yeah. And especially since there was,
And then you can get a sequel movie.
true.
I don't
No,
know.
they
Maybe you
made-
should have a second kid.
They made how many? Like 4 different
10
spin-offs. And
10 seasons worth of Stargate SG-1. Well, how many seasons? I think 4.
of Atlantis, and then
4 or
you
5
have
of Stargate Atlantis, and then there was I think there was only 2
like
of Stargate
6 made
Universe.
TV movies.
Yeah, there was
So-
like there was only like 2 or 3 made for TV movies.
So I guess Stargate Atlantis
Aside from this
actually deals with the lost city of Atlantis if this one deals with ancient Egypt.
Yes.
Yeah, but the same
Yeah.
premise of Egyptian.
Yeah, there's
just-
like an underlying
Except underwater ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crap.
No, it's not ancient Egypt as much as Stargate SG-1 is. There's like a different kind of like culture. Like there's like a lot of like Babylonian kind of culture and things like that.
But what amazes me with this film is that they were able, from just this film, which really doesn't have much to it, and they kill off the main bad guy, and they somehow get, hundreds of episodes out of that.
Well, because that isn't the main bad guy.
Well, didn't they?
That's the point.
Didn't they kind of do similar with Star Trek though? They started.
Yeah.
It was a series, then a movie, not a movie, then a big series.
Yeah, but there actually is a ton of, like, I was surprised at how much backstory of the aliens there was. Just, watching this again, having watched it like years and years and years ago, I don't remember, I didn't remember, but, I was surprised watching it again that there was that much in it. To learn about the aliens, and they carry on a lot of the technology. Like they used a lot of the same props and a lot of the same set pieces, and like they carried all that through to the series. Because it looks
cheesy enough to actually belong on TV. I'm sorry, I can't stand this movie.
I know my dad had pretty much every single kind of the Stargate TV shows and everything else. When I watched it, it was interesting to kind of see how they branched everything off. I mean, it was literally just a premise that you go through this gate and you wind up somewhere else.
Right.
And similar to what they did with Star Trek, you go to a planet, you're in an entirely different environment. So it was essentially kind of almost like a Star Trek replacement for some kids or for some people.
It was essentially Quantum Leap and then Sliders.
Yeah.
Well, TV loves like shows like this because they're so easy to write because you literally have a gate that can take you anywhere. So to make another episode takes like 5 minutes because whatever you can think, it's like, there's a gate for
reset.
that.
Oh, they made it home. What'll happen next time?
And then you don't have to worry. So it makes a very easy episodic TV show.
Mm-hmm. Or then, oh man, they didn't make it home this time. Cliffhanger episode.
End of season.
Tune in next week.
Oh God, never. And what about our other main character, Daniel Jackson, who I'm forgetting his name.
It was something Spade or something like that.
Oh God, now I'm blanking on his name.
David
Spader?
No, it wasn't David. It was like Jason something.
Jason Statham.
Oh.
Yes.
He buffed
Jason
up.
Statham.
I like it.
When he had hair.
Yes, that's
lots and lots of awkward hair.
I think even as a teenager, Jason Statham was balding.
He started going bald when he was 12.
Yep.
James Spader.
James
Spader. What else has he been in? Like, I've recognized him, but I can't think of anything else he's been in.
Apparently he was in Avengers Age of Ultron.
As what? As who?
Oh.
Silver Surfer? Was he Silver Surfer? Is that why we don't recognize
so
him?
different now.
Yes, he's bald. He's on the blacklist. Now I remember him. He was Ultron in Age of Ultron. That's his voice.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Yeah. Pretty in Pink, he was in.
And even he is one note in this. Like, his character he's a geek. He's smart dumb. He's socially awkward. And that's him in a nutshell.
That's every geeky character that ever exists in
Oh,
movies.
yay, stereotypes.
Oh, yeah.
Which are largely based on truth.
Yes.
And this whole time I was watching this movie, I was like, that role would be better as Nicolas Cage. I would rather see Nicolas Cage as that.
No.
The whole time I was
Nicolas
like,
Cage so
he
much.
would have brought something to
because
it.
then it would be just like National Treasure. And we don't want that.
But in space.
I know.
National Treasure in space.
But
nobody wants
something to give this character some life. He is so boring, so dull, and he's supposed to carry you through 2 hours of a movie where it's nothing but sand. There's not even something cool in the background to look at.
The pyramid's cool.
You had the three moons.
Yeah, the three moons.
The 3 moons.
That weird camel thing was interesting.
Which showed up
the
twice.
camel horse yak.
camel, horse, yak thing.
Like, this is
No,
the most
it was there a
boring
couple of
space
times.
movie ever.
It was a couple of times. They had the camel horse yak walking around.
Space.
Al
In-
Gore is
in
gonna go
parentheses.
hunting for that thing now.
No,
with
they were.
Bandera
It was
Pig.
in it was a pack animal, so it was
Yeah.
in the city, like walking around,
Yeah.
and they were digging.
Even that animal looked like just a yak. Even that was boring to me. I'm like, okay. Like, I could not find anything in this movie. I'm like, this is so interesting.
Even that looked like a
Act-
reject from the Dark Crystal.
Yes, it did. It looked like one of those crow things that were walking.
Jim Henson, get your damn puppets out of here.
But there was one shining light in the movie that I liked, which was the beginning with the mystery. Trying to, like, why do they need him? What is the Stargate? He's deciphering the puzzle.
Uh-huh.
From my recollection, when I watched this when I was a teenager in the 90s, I remember that being like a half an hour, 40 minutes long.
No,
it's only the actual first 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
And then
pretty
we are
quick.
taken to, they have a lot of known character actors in that base. They have people that establish a personality, and then we never see them again. Ever.
I
They're not
liked
even
the old
talked about.
lady. I
Yeah.
liked the old lady that gave him the pendant, that brought him onto it, and then we never see her again.
Yeah, even with the goofy guy that kept getting everything wrong, who's a big character actor.
Richard Kind.
Yeah,
Is that his name?
I believe so. He was on
Yeah.
Scrubs and he plays that type of character in other movies as well.
Mm-hmm.
But he's literally like, I was so sad because they all just disappeared. Even the general you think would show up again, that one that was no humor, they're just all thrown out, and it's like we never go back there. We're just stuck in sand.
Right.
Yep.
Well, why would they need to show those people again?
Like them
The
trying to
whole
get them
point was-
back or
well,
something.
All right, I guess, but the whole point was to see the other world.
They
Like,
do
that
it.
Yeah,
was
but
whole
the
point.
other world is so boring.
They do it in other movies. You think they would have cut to a scene back at Earth of them trying to reestablish radio contact?
Yeah,
of
something
some
like that.
sort, or trying to pinpoint where on the other side of whatever universe they are. Something.
We're sending supplies through, or sending like robots, because they obviously can send radio transmissions instantly, which across the
Yeah.
galaxy, which is like, what?
discussing whether or not it'll work.
Yeah, something along those lines. And there was also the fact that, did anybody get confused on the level of technology they had?
Who
Yes.
had?
Yeah.
The Marines that came in. Because
Oh.
sometimes the guy has a wibbly wop that literally goes up the stones. It calculates everything about the stones. And I'm like, okay, that's really advanced. And then they're using, like, binoculars. Just regular old, like, dollar store binoculars.
Yeah, instead of anything infrared or
Yeah,
whatnot.
and, like, little, like, normal handguns. Nothing, like, you have something that, it's, like, so, like, what the hell? And you could send radio frequencies?
Frequencies.
Yes, frequencies.
Frequencies?
Yes, I like that.
Yes.
It like it just like, are they really advanced? Or are they not advanced? It just didn't make, the film did not want to pick a theme.
Well, how could they have gone? Like, what is less advanced than the wibbly wop thing?
Like, why did you even need that? The droids, all of that. But-
How would they have known if they could have gone in there? Like, you can't just
I
walk
think-
through the Stargate and end up on another planet without knowing if they could breathe on that other planet.
No, I think that's the thing he's saying. You're taking the droid, which was, or would have been considered extremely advanced, something that
It
could
was
go.
kind of like the Moon rover or the Mars rover. I mean, it wasn't any different than that.
I guess they picked and chose what technology they felt needed to be that advanced. They figured, regular guns ought to do the trick if we run into organic beings
Yeah, and they really
that
just
are
wanted to
close
use
enough
that.
to us.
I mean, and they didn't think there was anything there to begin with, so
I think
why
you're
would
basing
they...
this movie off the series too much.
Yeah.
No, what do you mean?
Just because of all the technology in this movie. Like, I know,
Yeah, that rover thing.
But
that was
that-
exactly kind of almost similar to like a moon rover, like, you know, what would have been around that time. That's what they would have had. They would have had a thing like that.
to beam something across universes and send pictures.
Well, if they could do it on the moon,
Yeah, but
why wouldn't they try it
the picture,
going it through? Like, how would they know if it wouldn't work if they didn't try it?
I guess the thing that was, or should actually be considered frustrating, or let me phrase this. The thing that was frustrating for me was there was no sense of time. The pictures and everything were sent almost instantaneously, where even just having the light coming from the sun takes 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So you're having pictures being sent back instantaneously from the rover, which was sent extremely far away.
You can't complain about a 2-hour movie and then complain that everything was too instantaneous at the same time.
No,
Well,
but
even having a sense, like, we went from her being a young girl to immediately being an older woman.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't know it was the same person until we saw the pendant, until she said, I was with my dad in Egypt when we dug this up. So you're almost taken back trying to guess, where are we? Is this present day? Is this 20 years later? 30 years later? Who's the old woman?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really state anything about when the Egyptians, the aliens came, and she said a long time ago. I mean, the fact that they said, we banned reading and writing and everything like that, that was interesting to me, but...
Then they could all read and write.
Exactly. They were all of a sudden able to read and write. I mean, it's... Like, did time go by slower there? Was it the same? Like, there were some parts that I think could have been a little bit more informative and maybe help fill in that 2 hours.
You also have to think, when something is banned, it isn't automatically lost or stopped. We banned the sale and the sale of alcohol. We banned drinking of alcohol here.
Right.
But it still happened.
But how long was that ban, though? That ban was for maybe 10, not even 10 years.
So.
But then you have a civilization which...
Thousands upon thousands of years that's been outlawed.
Yeah, that's what we're assuming. We don't know.
Then you can even go back to, fine, a religion then. They tried to ban certain religions, Judaism being one of them. That survived. In European countries, you do it in hiding.
Well,
but for the sake of this one point,
so you could apply it to reading and writing in the movie.
Maybe they were
do it in
because
hiding.
I mean, maybe they were doing it in hiding.
Small groups of people passing it amongst themselves, just to keep it alive, just in case. Who knows?
It was a hidden little cave, and you had to know how to get into.
Right, I mean, that would have been interesting to say. This is how we were able to stay knowledgeable about our past.
But they didn't care in the end. Those characters were most of them just didn't do anything. Like, how do I put this? Besides hating them. I don't
But then
put
you
it
also
gently.
have to realize that she didn't necessarily know what the symbols meant. He was the one telling her what they meant. The only reason she was saying anything back to him is because she was correcting his pronunciation.
Yeah, she was correcting his words because it was an older dialect of the same language.
Right. That he didn't know how to pronounce because it had never been spoken. Which I thought that was pretty cool that they were doing that.
Technically, he was catching her up, teaching
her
the modern version of her own language.
Yeah, like that. Let me see. Was there any other women in this movie?
Nope.
No?
Well, not really. Not in any big capacity.
Well, she was the only young one. We saw a bunch of old ladies
there was
washing what's his name's feet and hands
and
and brushing his hair.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a very testosterone-filled movie.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't even say that. It kind of seemed to drag on a bit.
A lot of action movies
There was not much action in this movie.
No, I mean a lot of action movies are testosterone-filled. Like,
I'm just saying this movie.
Just all the extras are dudes. It's just easier for the
even a lot of
costume
sci-fi
department.
movies are a lot of dudes and not a lot of females.
Easier for costumes, easier for casting. Yeah.
All right.
Easier
Brought
for
that
makeup.
down. Feminism. Damn. No. Now, another thing I liked about the movie was the music, actually. I thought the music fit well, and it was
I like
it
the
was
music
good.
too. It's pretty cool.
Music was good.
And it's another thing that carries from the movie to the show. Like, they use that same music in the show.
Yeah, they're like, we paid to make this, and we own the rights to the film, so just pilfer everything off that corpse that we can.
Here, use this.
Did anybody feel it was like a little too loud sometimes and almost like
Yeah.
to the forefront of the film
Yeah.
over the visuals?
Every once in a while, yes.
But as we were talking about before the movie started, like we've talked about it, watching a lot of movies together, Mike. Like, just seems to be the way that the audio is done on like DVD players and stuff
Maybe.
anymore. That like the music and sound effects are so loud, and the talking is not loud at all.
I think this movie almost did it on purpose to fill that void that's done by the dull scenery of the desert. And
Well, I think they also
They're
were
falling
trying to-
asleep. They're falling asleep. There's nothing bright in the desert. Quick, turn the volume up.
I think they're also trying to make it feel like a giant epic thing.
yeah, it's like we need to give this life because it doesn't. This movie has no life.
The desert is full of
The-
death.
Yeah, there's nothing in this movie. Even the bad guy has composed of 4 people.
Yeah, a lot of the, I think, interest off the film is based on just Egyptian. Now, if you were to take just a random, made-up background story, you probably wouldn't have as much interest in this film.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to be transported to a thing of cubes with people with having, I don't know, just a giant stick as a mask or something, you would probably not be less interested. Otherwise, you'd be like, oh, that guy's head is Horus. That guy is Ra.
But-
It creates a much larger...
Yeah.
That
Something to connect to.
Yeah, you have a connection.
But then I think it almost works against itself by doing that. You have Egyptian. I already know everything to expect. Nothing is going to surprise me now.
Well, no, because, I mean, they used the Egyptian, they used those visuals in a different way. Like, the pyramid was the spaceship. And, the sarcophagus was like a different technology than you would have expected, from just knowing anything about Egyptology,
The sarcophagus wasn't just a coffin. It was like a
Yeah.
It was
I mean,
like
it had
a
a purpose.
rebirth medical chamber.
Yeah, but as
Right. I mean, that could have been something that would have surprised people, the way they used that imagery that is so familiar to you, but, we only know a little bit about stuff like that. And then this they used their imagination to kind of fill in what we don't know yet. Took some liberties, and, that could have been surprising to people. That was kind of interesting for me, is to see how they used like what people already knew about Egyptology to make it more creative and imaginative, and to make it aliens.
Which is that way of looking at it perfectly fine. It's cool, but with me, I see, okay, a sarcophagus heals people. Okay. You have Egyptian pharaoh mask, it's on your face. Okay. Horus is just a face on your head, just like all the statues. This is just that. They have staffs like the statues. The spaceship is a pyramid. I see the theme, and the theme, maybe because I don't like Egyptian, I wouldn't say not like it, because the film, The Mummy, I thought was really well done, and I liked that movie a lot. But this one, I felt was so dull with everything it attempted.
Well, like I said, if the only thing that probably strung a lot of people to enjoy the film was its connection to Egyptian culture. If you take that away, how much more duller do you think this movie would be to a lot of people?
I think if it kept more of the mystery.
Probably just the pacing of it that threw you off.
Yeah.
Oof, it's terrible. It's not like an adventure movie, because they're not really on a big adventure. Because they're just mostly sitting around a campfire with people who don't understand them, or just making their camp. And there's no adventure. There's no real action here.
Yeah.
There's like 3.5 places that they're at.
Yeah.
They're at the Stargate base for 0.5.
Which is a blank room with nothing in it that's dark.
Right. They're at the Stargate place, or they're at the point of origin on the planet where the Stargate is.
Yeah, that's the boring place, but the one at Earth, that's all alive, and there's buzzing, there's mystery, and there's like, oh my god, you have the people's reaction. Feels alive. Then we take all of that, all that good stuff that I find good, and then we just take it all away.
Right. And then you have the spaceship, and then you have the city where everyone is at. It's really pretty much just a straight line back and forth, constantly going from one scene to the next scene. It's always going to be one of those places. And you don't even see them returning and him telling the old lady what all happened. It just ends.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah, that's what I don't like. There's no closure.
On the old lady, like, I knew there was something wrong. And she's
Where's
proven
my
right and
necklace?
nothing. So said, did you like the CGI tube slide?
The what?
Oh, how
CGI
ridiculous
tube
is that?
slide. Tube slide.
Back
Through the
to-
Stargate.
choo.
Where you're like,
Oh, yeah, the tube slide. Yeah, that carries on, too, throughout the season.
yeah, that looks so 90s. It
Yeah.
almost
They do
makes
that
me
in this.
weep.
They do that in the series, too. For, like, 4 episodes, and then they're like, all right, this animation is not necessary anymore. I think everybody knows what's happening.
Too expensive? Was it
Yeah,
connected to the
maybe, I
budget
don't
too
know.
much?
Do the same one. They just cut it shorter, started like halfway through it. But like the CG in this was bad. I almost wish they didn't use it. Like the heads transforming, that was really bad.
Yeah.
Like
that was-
egregiously bad.
For the 90s, though,
Kind of
would you say it
Yeah,
was
that
bad?
was pretty
Yes.
good, though, for the 90s.
Nah, not even.
I'm
I
looking
think
at
they
Reptile in Mortal Kombat bad.
I think they could have just pressed a button, had the pieces of the helmet just loosen, and then just took them off.
Or something like practical that you could do it, and then the next shot it disappears. Like you didn't need to keep showing that CGI head back.
Like plates that fold back into
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah, it just kind of all seemed to just go back together and then just vanish.
And then
Yeah, it would just literally go here, like that. I'm motioning to my neck, and then it would literally go away,
and
just
it's
somewhere.
like it sucked into his head or something.
Well, he was wearing, like, a neck thing. He had some sort of collar on.
Yeah, but the way it finishes its closure, it goes to one point, and you would expect like a piece of metal or something to be there, and it just vanishes.
Yeah, it didn't for the guy, but it did for his, like, little minions. They had like a big collar on, but for him it kind of just disappeared.
But personally,
Yeah.
I don't think the animation, the special effects were too bad, especially when
Yeah,
you
I didn't
first
think
see
they
the
were that bad.
Stargate open.
Yeah, that one's a
That-
good.
I think that's pretty much where the bulk of the
Stargate opening was good.
the money went. But when I'm thinking back on like other movies at that time, it wasn't as bad. I mean, but then again, I'm trying to think of the budget of this movie compared to some of the others.
Well, it was the CGI was limited. They did a lot practically, like the heads, which were probably the best looking thing in here. The staffs, they were kind of cheesy, and if you look, you see them broken every 5 minutes.
They were very cheesy. They really didn't need to open and close at the end when they shot the lasers. They really didn't need to.
It was just to be like, something's gonna happen here.
Yeah, there was a lot of that with like, oh god.
Well, it made the staff usable as a different type of weapon.
Yeah.
You could use it as a staff for hitting people with.
Yeah, but,
But then you could also use it as a.
like even that
to
prop
fire a gun
design,
at somebody.
those staffs were boring. It keeps bringing me back. You look at the staffs, all they do is open up a little bit, and there's a little barrel. There's no imagination in this movie. Even teleporting is just rings. That's it. Just rings and
they're mini Stargates.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
mini Stargates that go up and down. Oh my god. Well, let's talk about the villain of the movie, Ra, the guy from the Crying Game. This is a sequel, I believe, to that movie, or a prequel. I don't know which.
Mr. Androgynous?
Yes,
Is that really the same guy for real?
yes, it is. And was he threatening to anyone else? I did not feel threatened by him at all. I was just like, oh, he's like 12.
No, he just seemed like he was having a fabulous day at the spa for most of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't. His main threat was literally technology.
Right.
He didn't have any special powers except to transport his essence into another person. But even then, I think that was still technology based. So that was his threat. Like he was
Right. Yeah,
otherwise.
that wasn't imposing to us because we didn't have, we weren't being oppressed by him. But for his, the slaves that were working for him, that was definitely threatening because he had something that they didn't have, and they didn't understand how it worked.
Yeah, even with his technology, it's all boring. Like, he has all that. He could do anything. Shoot eye lasers, electricity.
No, you
He
can't do
chooses
that.
to have a little gauntlet that turns you into scrambled eggs when he touches you.
No, it's like it's like
Yeah, it's a piece of jewelry. I know what it is, but even that is
but he
boring.
wasn't turning him into scrambled eggs. It was like
That's a joke.
I'm
Lobotomy.
sorry. It was kind of like a laser kind of thing.
They just shook their head and then
A laser that fries your brains
only when it touches you.
into scrambled eggs.
Like, even that is boring, and his spaceship is boring too. It's like 4 rooms that are tightly packed to each other because they keep showing it, and it's like, okay, you go through here and you're there, you're here.
But that propulsion,
Oh.
man, you gotta think about how much that propulsion. Plus, it needs to be so large that you have the propulsion on all sides so you can fit on top of other pyramids.
Nah, like, the internal is so tiny. It made it seem like all the rooms were packed together, and yet he couldn't find anything. And at the end, they end up blowing it up. Kurt Russell, after his nice quip. And then I realized later, I'm like, wow, he just nuked all those children. How is he getting closure after this? Like, you have that big deal in the movie where he's looking, seeing him surrounded by
yeah.
children, and then he's like, we're gonna nuke those kids.
Is it me or the kids?
Collateral damage. There's more children on Earth.
Do you think he'd feel bad after that? Like, oh, God, my son's dead, and I just killed basically a kindergarten class full of kids.
Well, what were you going to do if you saved them? I mean, they were basically bred to be exactly like that guy. I mean, they were the bad guys, too.
They were shells, right?
You know what?
they
Androgynous
weren't.
alien dude was about to kill everybody else on Earth. So
All bets are off. It's not like those kids tried to stop him.
collateral damage.
Yeah, but he's all... you think that would destroy him
And
instead of, like, getting him over his kids.
No,
His kid's death.
that doesn't seem to happen with many people. It's like, oh, I killed this guy's father. Or, this guy I killed, he's probably the father of some kid, but, nah, I'm gonna go around killing more.
Yeah, they didn't even show those kids. Like, you knew those kids were there, but they purposely didn't show you those kids explode.
Yep.
Just like they purposely didn't show that other guy dying, they just showed his helmet rolling away.
Yep. The only person you really see, I think, die is the black guy. He's the one who gets shot.
That poor
He gets
black guy.
thrown against the wall, and they just like, okay, he's
No,
dead.
I thought they,
Movie stereotype.
No, they definitely shot him.
No,
He's definitely dead.
I have no argument with that. I thought, because I kept seeing those same guards over again, did they just put him in the coffin and then bring them back out like he kills them for fun, revives them, and like get back to work?
That's possible,
Because
too.
they look
I mean,
like the same actor at the beginning of the film, like
Yeah, but
that
they
one
weren't-
black guy, and then it just looks like they keep coming back.
What?
Well,
No,
here's
that
what
black
they
guy
do.
was the Earth guy.
No, he's talking about the people portraying the gods.
The guards with the staffs and the
Yeah,
heads.
but they didn't die in that scene with the black guy
But
that died.
it seemed that every single time they died,
They
you
just
see
brought
them
him
again
back.
later on in the movie.
And I thought he was reviving them all. That's
And
why we
turning
kept seeing
them.
I
them.
didn't get
and
the
bringing
impression
them
that they
to
died
Yeah.
until the end of the movie.
Like he was just
I didn't
killing
see
them
them.
to be amusing
Who?
to himself.
He killed them?
Rob would
Oh.
kill them when he got mad
Well,
and just
yeah,
revive them again.
That's possible.
It's
I
like,
thought because
Well,
I
didn't
swore they
see
were
that
the
black
same
guy
actor.
Come back, though.
I don't know.
No, I think he did. It's just his head never came down. Like I think he was one of the glider.
Oh.
Well, not the one that died in the village when they were taking the cargo, but the one that got shot in the pyramid. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that was a different
Wow.
actor.
Yeah. But they were kind of meh.
Yeah,
and
meh.
like even they can be overthrown by just a bunch of people throwing them up in the air, mazel toving. It looked like a bar
Oh, no,
mitzvah
they
every
were
time
beating
they
him.
beat one of
They
them.
were beating him.
Yeah, but every time at the end you would see him just throw them up like mazel tov, mazel tov. We beat you, mazel tov.
Well, you would expect a mob of people to kill them. There was
Hmm.
only 2 of them compared to like 50,000 of the other people.
But that's another thing. There's like 6 bad guys. There's a total of 6 bad people, and they're subjugating thousands upon
But
thousands.
they have
Their superiority.
Yeah,
lasers.
but, yeah.
But
Lasers.
They have the high ground, Mike.
Even when they're in an airplane or the flying saucer, the people have no ammo down, and they're like, put their hands up,
Laser
and then
beams.
they land and go towards them to
Yeah.
shoot
And
them.
they're shiny.
That made no
Well,
sense.
and plus there was no weapons for these people before the Earth people got there. I mean, they didn't have anything besides from rocks.
Well, they had.
That's it.
They ran with picks and stuff. I don't
And
know.
the other thing
okay.
is,
compared to the staff that shoots people with lightning. I mean,
you're subjugating them
fireballs
with
or whatever.
fear.
You
Yeah.
would have bowed
Yeah,
down to that too
definitely.
if you were.
Yeah, I mean, you have a
Primitive
stick. You have a stick and a rock compared to like a fireball and the hand device that scrambles your brain.
You would have been like, screw this, subjugate me.
Yeah.
I will mine whatever.
Plus, they were not educated. They weren't educated to think about different ways that they could have overthrown them themselves. They
But that's what I'm
needed the
saying. Like,
Earthlings.
the only thing they needed to do was just rush them. Then you're good. What
Right.
was their tactic? Run. Even that, I usually love the cavalry scene in a movie.
Well, mob mentality works both ways, with fight and flight, and they all went with flight.
That's very true.
Plus, they were all
For a guy who comes back only so often.
Yeah, but they were all led to believe that he was a god.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't until they pointed out, look, they're not really gods. They're just normal people like you are. Like, you can kill them. Like, you can do it. Then they were like, oh, okay. All right, we got this. You know, I mean...
We got this. Get
I
your
mean,
sticks, boys.
They were... What's the word? I guess you could say brainwashed.
They were conditioned.
They were conditioned. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
To think that they were gods that were coming to them.
What the hell was I going to say?
Something.
Well, we were talking about how they were
dark
gods.
side.
Ra is a god.
Yeah.
Something complete.
Perfect.
I mean, we don't know how long, again, with my thing with the time, it could have been thousands of years where even if they came by maybe once every 50 years or once every 100 years, if you're constantly seeing the same person, or what you believe to be the same person, you're going to be like, all right, this is not possible. Here I am, I'm aging, I'm seeing my kids growing old, they're coming here, they're doing whatever they feel like, and there seems to be no way to stop them. Nobody has tried it before, and any tales of people trying this have met with death. So I don't want to die. I don't want my family to die. My neighbor, I don't mind if he tries something, he dies, that way I can have his house. But, I mean, you're essentially conditioned to that fear until you have the Americans coming by and, guns.
Yeah, the white Americans
It's the
solving
same-
all your
It's
problems.
the same way
Yeah,
any belief
essentially.
system gets passed down.
You're
It's the same way any religion gets
I know. Like, this is even a weird, strange topic. Like this, like what you're supposed to take for, like what you're supposed to assume in movies and what you're not.
Okay.
Like, everybody right now is assuming that, like, there's this thousands of years that have been subjugated.
Well,
That's
I'm pretty sure
cool.
they said it.
I'm
We probably just don't remember them
No,
saying
I'm-
it, but I'm pretty sure they said it.
I am not arguing that point. I'm just saying, like, that stuff in movies that a movie can actually make you think that, like,
We
within
didn't-
one scene you can guess this whole all their backstories.
We didn't get
Which
the
is pretty
nice
amusing.
subtitle that said how much time had passed in this world.
Yeah,
Yeah, but when he was reading the hieroglyphs, I think he said something like,
yeah, they subjugated them, brought them there.
no, like about a time. I don't remember what he said, but he probably said thousands of years ago or whatever.
Yeah, well, you're supposed to think when ancient Egypt was popular.
Right. I mean, then I guess that's
Taking
why
up
they
the charts.
showed the ancient Egyptians when he was explaining it.
Well, he said that's when they were brought over to that other planet, is when ancient Egypt was up and about.
Right. And then they closed up.
And then they closed the gates.
They closed up the gate on Earth, so nobody knew.
Yeah, and
What it
you're
was
only
and
supposed
how
to
to
assume
use
that
it
there's
and-
2 Stargates in this movie.
Right.
That's another thing they edited for the TV show to make it.
Right.
Yeah. And it was only Ra, and Ra's basically immortal at that point, so he just needs the material from this planet.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Right.
And that's his whole shtick. Did everybody like the 80s cliche of we got to put a time limit on the
90s?
finale?
90s.
What did I say?
yeah.
You said 80s.
Yeah, 80s, 90s. Anything where at the end of the movie, to make everything more
Suspenseful.
suspenseful, we have to put a time limit on it. and literally this had a time limit in it.
Let's start this bomb now.
Yeah.
Do you know what you're doing? What? No. Too late. I already started the bomb.
Yeah. And it's safe, it can't be turned off, all that good stuff. Like, even that's part of that technology. You have this little thing that's like the size of this tiny table right here, and it's basically a nuclear device that can blow up the world if times 100. Did anybody notice how much in this movie that the guns made that clicking noise?
Yeah,
Like of the
same.
cocking?
The
lot.
same noise was used for just about every action each gun did.
Oh, you gotta make sure that you know that they actually have a gun and that
And
they're
they're
ready
cocking.
to use it.
And it's the same one in different tones. And I almost wanted to make a drinking game of it halfway through. I'm like, if that keeps happening, I'm going to take a shot for every shot that is readied. Is there any other, like, Egyptian movies? Like, this is one of the few I can think of where it's completely Egyptian themed besides The Mummy. That's about it. Is there any other ones that come into play? Especially one where a white man is not trying to save all of Egypt?
That isn't a cartoon.
That isn't a cartoon.
Or biblically.
So no mummies alive.
Or biblically referenced.
So no Prince of Egypt is what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. That's actually one I could think of.
I have no idea.
Oh, wait. Gods of Egypt. Yeah, that had perfect Egyptians, didn't
Yeah.
it? Gerard Butler.
There you go.
He was Egyptian, wasn't he? Gregory Rush. He was Egyptian.
It had what's his name?
From Game of Thrones.
Two-Face. No.
Two-Face?
No, it wasn't Two-Face.
Aaron Eckhart?
It was the guy. Yeah, it wasn't Aaron Eckhart. It was the guy from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to see that because I was curious how much they would butcher Egyptian mythology.
It's different. It's a movie that goes on for 2 hours. And it's a movie.
I mean, obviously there's Ra and Set in there.
Yeah, Set is Gerard Butler, and
But
Ra is Gregory Rush,
That's all
Captain
That's
Barbossa,
all I could get.
who is on a golden throne that fights the darkness every night. Yes.
Wait, Jeffrey Rush is
Gregory
Ra.
Rush. Gregory Rush. Yes. Captain Barbossa is Ra.
Barbossa is Ra.
Yes.
Then who the hell is Game of Thrones guy?
Horace.
Oh, he's Horus. Okay.
And that's even it has a lot of CGI, and Gerard Butler, he knows what movies he's in, so it's kind of amusing to watch him, but the rest of the movie's pretty junk.
I can't think of anything.
Nor can I.
You know, she's Googling.
No, I was actually looking at how much money and what the critical reception was for the movie at that time.
Well, how much did it make?
It actually made quite
what
a
was
bit.
the
So
budget?
the budget was $55 million. The box office was $196.6 million.
How did this movie make that much money?
It actually won a number of awards.
Probably.
For best science fiction film. Well, you have to. I think the only other science fiction film that was really going around during that time was Independence Day.
Oh, I thought
That was in the 2000s.
Independence Day was good.
No,
little bit better
Independence
than
Day was
this.
in 2000.
I thought it was the 2000s.
No.
Huh.
Independence Day was a little bit more
But
fleshed out
I
than
think
this
this
was.
came out before Independence Day. This was in
It was
94.
more fun Independence Day.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Independence Day even with its cheesiness, but it has something
at
about
least
it.
fun cheesy.
There
Yeah.
was some people panicking for the thinness of the plot. They felt like the special effects were being overused too much, which I could kind of agree.
That's almost crazy now as we think of movies now and how little I thought was in this
Yeah.
comparatively. Like now, if you had this little CGI in your movie, you would be laughed at.
But the interesting thing here is that I'm reading, they actually envisioned Stargate as the first part of a trilogy of films.
So
Trilogy?
if it made
Did
all
they
that
change
money,
their mind?
I'm wondering if it was because this was MGM.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if things such as Independence Day and maybe the Star Wars films beginning, their prequels, if it made them decide. Because I think also MGM was going a lot of bankruptcy issues, especially with the Bond films. I think there was talks about that. So I'm wondering if it was the finances of the studio that would be like, okay, this may not be a risk we want to take.
That's surprising. Like, you would think they'd want to take it because it made 4 times its budget in the United States.
Yeah,
You would think they'd be all over that
Let's
to make
sink
another.
more money into these failing Bond movies instead of exploring something new.
Right. But then I guess they decided to do the television instead. Like, they probably
Yeah.
made a lot more money that way.
I remember it was on Showtime for a bit, and I think MGM owns Showtime, if I'm not mistaken.
May 2014, MGM and Warner Brothers are partnering together for a reboot of Stargate as a trilogy with the original people.
That's
Or the original
interesting.
directors and producers.
With, like,
When did the-
Kurt Russell?
When did the
No?
When did the series come out? Like what year?
94. So it was 20 years later that they announced that they were going to do a reboot of the series.
Well, that's Hollywood in a nutshell now. It's like you have to have a shared universe / it needs to be a trilogy to get as much money out of it, and it has to be an existing IP.
Yeah.
So they jump on that like crazy. Or a young adult novel.
No, I mean, like this movie came out in 1990, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then when did the TV show, come out?
Oh, that's actually a good question.
Well, I don't mind the young adult
'Cause,
novels.
like, that's interesting. They wanted to make it a trilogy, and then they ended up going with a TV show instead.
That could just be budgetary reasons, like they ran out of funds. Because even the series was on Showtime and then got canceled, for a lack of a better word, and then moved on to like sci-fi or something
97.
Yeah, but it's
So
in a-
they could have decided to do a series instead of a trilogy of movies.
it being a TV series could have been a better move than it being a trilogy of movies.
Obviously it was, because they made 10 seasons
So,
worth out of it.
There you go.
Plus they had Richard Dean Anderson, which was, probably a pretty big moneymaker for them.
like that. I don't really think so at that point in his career.
There's MacGyver.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, but MacGyver is almost a joke in hindsight. We're all like MacGyver, and we all know who MacGyver is, but how many of us actually watched MacGyver?
I did.
Yeah.
I actually
Really?
watched
Yeah, I
MacGyver.
did.
I had no choice. At the time,
Wow,
there was only
maybe
one
I've been
TV
living a
in
lie.
my house, and my mom liked MacGyver. So, yeah.
Okay, apparently I am the one in the wrong here. Apparently everybody watched MacGyver.
Yeah, that was a pretty hit show.
I had no choice in the matter, and it wasn't that bad.
Oh God. Well, I'm sure they'll remake. They are remaking it as a movie.
For real?
What, MacGyver? Yeah.
No, it's a TV show. The previews are already out.
Who's in it?
I have no idea, and maybe
So
that's the way it
there are
should stay.
apparently a lot of movies that have like an Egyptian theme. The
Oh.
Fifth Element.
Yes, I wouldn't really call that.
Transformers.
No.
Revenge of the Fallen.
No.
Well, they were in Egypt.
No.
No. For what? All of 5 minutes?
Same with the
Yeah,
Fifth Element.
That's
you had
why
kind
it
of
takes
it,
place
but
around the pyramids of Giza.
No.
no.
Well, it does.
No, it has to
It
be
does,
longer
you're
than
not-
5 minutes.
It was apparently a key point in Autobot history.
Bullshit.
That's what it said.
And
Prince of
around the world in
Egypt.
80 days, they stopped in Egypt.
Night
That
at the
doesn't make it an
Museum.
Egyptian
Oh,
film.
We're
I've
not
heard
arguing
about
that
Night
it didn't
Museum.
happen in Egypt.
Not-
We're
that's
arguing
not
Oh,
Night
Night
at
in
the
the
Museum.
Museum. Yeah, you could say that.
Young Sherlock Holmes.
Never saw it.
The Spy Who Loved Me.
What?
James Bond.
James Bond.
Oh.
Well, we were talking about.
Cleopatra.
I think we're
Oh,
talking
God,
about
Cleopatra.
Cairo
Egyptian
time.
films during that time, during the
That's
90s.
true.
I was thinking overall, like
Yeah.
for
okay.
something
And
that
of
has
course
like
the
this
Mummy,
big history.
like with
Yeah,
Boris Karloff.
for something like
Boris
this
Karloff.
huge
The
back,
English
like
patient.
all this stuff
Right.
for Egypt.
So-
Never
you
even
would
heard
think.
of that one. English Patient. That was 1996.
Yeah, you'll watch that, and it'll be very slow.
Hmm?
You think this movie's slow?
Meh.
But I heard it was good. But then again, Oscars can lie.
I think they do that a lot.
I wouldn't say, for me, I think it was a little bit more disappointing watching it as an adult, realizing that certain things should have flowed a little bit better, or at least had a little bit more emphasis. Like, build up on the characters, or add in a few more action scenes. Make the main
bad guys seem a little bit more imposing.
Yeah. If you were watching this for action, you weren't going to get what you wanted out of it.
Or adventure.
No.
No.
It
Because
wasn't.
that wasn't how this movie was. It wasn't like that.
It wasn't terrible. It just wasn't as fleshed out as it could have been.
It was definitely a very slow moving, but what I liked about it was that it wasn't like, you know, okay, we're going to this land and everybody speaks English, and, you know, we're going to outer space and everybody speaks English for some reason, and...
There's no Babelfish or translator
Right,
devices.
yeah, he had to, like, he had to, like, figure it out. And it wasn't like, all right, this guy knows 5 languages, and this one happens to be one of them. You know, it wasn't like that either. It was like...
But it kind of was.
No, not really, because he didn't know it.
No, it
at
was
first.
logical. They tracked him down because he was an expert in Egyptian culture and language and writing, and they were working with a device that was covered in Egyptian shit.
Right. As opposed to, like, if he was
No,
just
not that.
a part...
I meant...
That sent him to a place that was Egyptian themed.
No, but then he knew the language but, like, he read it and was like, oh, you just say the vowel a little differently and he's fine.
Well, yeah, he had to learn to speak it the
Well,
right way, because when you think about it, it hasn't been spoken in, you know, how long, you know? It's, I mean... It made sense. It made sense
If he
the way
learned
it
how to,
happened.
if he learned how to read it, he most likely also learned how to speak the modern version of
Yeah,
it.
it almost seemed like, all right, we have
So
that.
he probably also picked up some of the ancient dialect as well, just for funsies in college.
Right. But, I mean, what I'm saying is, it wasn't like he happened to be on their team, and they happened to show up to this one place, and he knows 5 languages, and that happens to be one of them.
It's not
where
one of
they happen to
those
end up,
ridiculous
you know?
things.
It wasn't... It made sense that they tracked him down because of his knowledge of Egyptian culture, and it came in handy to know. But he didn't know it right away. It wasn't like he heard them talking and was like, oh, that's how you say it.
But it wasn't a mystery or anything. It was just there.
Part of the movie, but we didn't see it largely happening throughout the movie. It happened in the background.
Even in the beginning, you could say he translated that one little bit of text, which was arbitrary, because as soon as they found out the symbols, which have nothing to do with Egypt, that were based on star constellations, even that was arbitrary, that he was an Egyptian guy.
He ruled out the fact that they were Egyptian.
Yeah. And then he used constellations to figure it out, which...
No, those were the symbols.
Yes, I know, but that means he'd be an astrologer to know all those symbols. But instead, he's a linguist, and he finds that out. So why would he have a better idea?
He didn't know the symbols.
Yes, he did.
He knew.
He figured it out later. Like, he didn't have that knowledge. He didn't look at it and go, oh, that's Orion. He had to see it. Somebody else, like...
But you could say anybody could do that. So his knowledge of being an Egyptian, of being... a trademark Egyptian guy, had nothing to do with him figuring out the Stargate.
Well, no, not that part, but it did the important part, because he was able to learn all that other stuff. Like, all that stuff on the tablet was the explanation of how to use it. And nobody else knew it.
No, it didn't.
Yeah, that's how he knew about the 6 points in the, in the solar system, and then everything had a 7th symbol that had to go with it too, because that was part of the tablet that he was translating.
The thing he was reading was just saying, the part on the chalkboard was just that.
The part on the chalkboard was just that, but there was a big thing that he was looking at too.
But they never showed us him deciphering that. We're just supposed to guess, and he's not the one who figured it.
He was standing in the room looking at that, and he had a recording of himself talking about it.
No, you know why? Because he didn't know about the gate at that point.
Right.
He didn't know about the gate.
He was only looking at the cover stone.
And they already set up the gate to work.
They just didn't know the destination. They just didn't know what the 7th point was.
So everything he did, he basically was figuring out for himself of what everybody already knew. Because they set up the Stargate, they somehow powered the Stargate, they somehow wrote a program to work with the Stargate without him. So he was, in the end, worthless. Because if they just had, an astrologer walk by that thing, he'd probably know in a second. And even at the end, when they had, they needed to know the symbols to get back to Earth, it's literally written linearly on a piece of paper. Well, a piece of stone.
Mm-hmm.
So even that they didn't really need him for.
He's the one that found it. Would the
No,
other,
he
would
isn't.
The other guy
The other
that knew
army
Egyptian-
guys found it.
No, they would never have been able to. They would never have known it was there because it was only his. Because he's the archaeologist. He's the linguist. He was the one that was making a connection and a relationship with these people. Nobody else was taking the time to do that. Nobody else would have found it.
The other guy that knew Egyptian, would he have even gone through the Stargate?
Probably not.
No, they wouldn't have even taken him because, as you said, he was arbitrary.
No, they wouldn't have let him through because Jackson lied to say, I can definitely get us through.
Well, he did get them through.
Not as easily as they thought.
Well, that wasn't lying.
You never let on how hard or easy a task is for you to do if you actually want the job.
Yeah, that's true. That's how 90% of us are still employed.
I see both perspectives. Like, they were working on the Stargate project for 2 years. It took him 14 days to figure out what they already knew and needed to know. The problem with the movie is it didn't really show that. You're kind of led to assume it. It would have been nice to have maybe even a montage or even a few additional pieces where it's showing him this symbol belongs to this and it's originating here. As far as for the final piece, that wasn't him so much as being a linguist. It was just being in the right place at the right time and having some kind of understanding of astrology.
Or just symbols, because the written Egyptian language is pictures.
Right.
Okay, but what I'm saying is...
No,
like,
I understand what you're saying. I completely do. I'm saying from Mike's perspective and your perspective.
Right.
From your perspective,
Okay.
you're being led to believe all that information. From Mike's
because there's no way that he looked at those symbols and just went, oh, that's going to take you, like, I'm talking about the constellations. Like, there's no way he looked at the constellations and was like, oh, well, you need 6 constellations and a point of origin to go to a point, like, in another galaxy. He obviously had to get that information from somewhere. That's logic. You don't just look at constellations and a series and realize, oh, these are symbols, and then realize in the next breath, oh, that's what these are for.
Right.
Like, and that's why he was needed, is because he figured all that out. They knew the symbols, but they didn't know what it was going to do.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't, because they
they
couldn't get it to
They
work.
did. They wanted it to open. That's what the
But
whole thing was
They
about.
couldn't get it to work.
That's why the other...
And they didn't know it was going to take them to another
Yeah.
galaxy.
They couldn't get it to work because one of the symbols didn't have the squiggly guys next to it. That was the only thing holding them back, which was pretty, like, for all these, like, MIT grads that basically made this work, your whole excuse is because they didn't have squiggly guys next to them.
And that was kind of lame. But, no, what I'm saying is they didn't know as much as you think they knew.
I think they
All
did.
they were going to know is that they was going to type in those symbols and it was going to do something, but they didn't know what it was going to do. They needed him so that he could figure out what it was going to do. I mean, you think maybe that other Egyptian guy who knew, knew Egyptian, was translating it. He translated everything wrong. He was going to maybe end up telling them the wrong thing. That's why they needed Daniel Jackson. He had a much superior knowledge of Egyptology and, Egyptian symbols and hieroglyphs. And he was able to figure all that out. But I'm saying that is logical. There's no way that people just looked at the constellations and realized what they were for.
I think
They had to obviously have had more information. And maybe they could have spent more time showing him, doodling or, reading up about it in like a montage, like you say. But, I mean, I think that's logic. A logical conclusion to make. I don't think that's filling in gaps.
you're giving people who look at a movie extremely for what the movie's showing you, and you're looking at people for what the movie is making you believe it has happened or is already happening. So it's two different people looking at the same movie from two different perspectives, which is where we're running into right now.
No, I think yes, I believe that, but this whole movie with Jackson, I am told he is important all the time. He is important. He is important. He is important. He is important. They are not showing me why he is important. The only thing they show, everything at the beginning, And since they already have it all set up, they already knew about the symbols, they already knew it was some type of gate, because they had people... They brought in Kurt Russell because his job was to find anything on the other side of the gate, and they brought him in before Jackson was even contacted. So
No.
Yes.
No. Did they?
Yeah,
I
that's the origin.
I thought Daniel was first.
Daniel came in, and Kurt Russell was already there established. So we know they know that it's going to lead somewhere, and they know, and Kurt Russell's job is to block whatever comes in there.
No, Daniel was first.
No.
Well, we may have seen Daniel first, but Kurt Russell's character was already on the military base because he was there in uniform with his fancy new haircut.
And he had his orders saying, "This is my project."
No, the girl was there.
No. In order of timeline of the movie, we do see Daniel first, and then we see Kurt Russell. However...
It should be the opposite way.
But no. So
it
movie
could
time...
have been happening at the same time. The military was getting Kurt Russell's character at the same time that the old lady was getting a hold of Daniel. It could have been happening at the same time.
So movie timeline,
Right.
we do see Daniel, and then
Right.
we do see Kurt Russell. However, for events that happen behind, Kurt Russell's already on the base. He's already dressed up. He already has his crew cut and everything else. He's already signing documents as Daniel's walking into the base for the first time. So you're being introduced to the main character and then the secondary character. However, in the background of events, the secondary character is already there being established as a commanding officer, where the main character is just getting in while he's still having his feet wet and everything else.
Okay, but don't you think that means that Daniel's important? All those years and they never got the military involved, and then all of a sudden they go, yeah, we're going to get this guy. Now we might need to make sure that we have some sort of military presence on this base.
No, there was military.
The military is involved.
The
The military has been involved.
But they weren't the ones in control. She even said it. She said, this was my project. I was told this was my project. What are you doing here? And then all of a sudden she had all these restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, the military was always there. They were just
But they weren't in control.
No, they were in control. They just let her do it.
They
It was
gave
a side
her
project.
autonomy.
Yeah.
I mean, they let her have free reign with the understanding that they could take it back at any time.
Bureaucracy.
They do
Daniel
decide to
Jackson
sometime.
was a reason for them to bring it in. I mean, that makes him pretty important if all of a sudden they needed to put the Hulk, on her project because they knew that he was going to find what they needed him to find. That makes him pretty important.
No, that's just plot convenience.
And he found the answer to everything in that everything.
The only thing we were shown is that he saw the symbols that were coordinates, which they already knew because they already established the gate, set up the gate, and they were punching in numbers already. Which begs another question. So they could never get that last symbol to punch it in to work correctly, right? So why didn't they just click on the symbols until they got the right one?
Well, it was easier to find what the actual order was instead of trying them. There's
No,
how many symbols, that was going to be how many hours worth of work.
They were already
with
2
them.
years.
How many symbols on
2
a
years and they couldn't figure it out. Daniel
seven
Jackson
symbol
comes in.
combination lock, and what happens if you accidentally open it on the wrong combination?
But in this movie,
Yeah.
they talked about it, and in
But
this
there were a
movie,
lot more than 7 symbols on that
true, you
thing.
say like 10
That
minutes
was
per symbol.
100.
Yeah.
That was probably a good 100 symbols
No.
on that big thing.
I can see it now. They walk in, and
Maybe
the robot comes
something.
back. It's like, why is it all sticky and everything else? It went into the Bukake world. We
No,
were
but in
speaking
this
again.
in
Ew.
this movie, it's not like the show's not established yet. There was only one place this thing led, and that was to the other world. So whatever one you
Star
used
you?
would fail. Yeah,
Star you! Star me? What?
But to get home, they needed him to get home. They weren't going to get home without him.
Well, yeah, at that point, he really was the only one that knew what he was doing.
Well, they didn't even show, because they didn't show how he opened the gate on the other side, because they had this big apparatus to actually move and lock in all the symbols. While on this, while on the Egyptian side or the Far World side, they had nothing of that.
It's like, all right, I need you guys to move it on the right side. You push down, you guys, you push up.
I know the series explains that, but the movie doesn't.
I don't remember seeing anything in the movie that
Yeah.
explained
It just opens up, and it's all cool.
Then again, I wasn't really looking. There were things in that room, though. Any one of them could have been what they used. And maybe they did it by hand. Because it did spin. You could have moved it by hand.
It needed to be oiled up first, and that's why they needed a virgin sacrifice.
Yep.
There you go.
Daniel Jackson. Symbolism. Did anybody like that symbolism? I pointed it out there in the movie.
What's in
It was bad, but so you see Daniel Jackson finally gets to make Whoopi with his love interest.
Oh, that was not symbolism. That was just you being dirty.
No, and then
That was not symbolism.
Then we had 2 scenes sewn in there of humps, dry humps.
That was just
Of
you being
sand.
dirty.
That was not...
That
You
was
can't take
terrible.
a whole movie that has sand in it and then pick that one scene is the symbolism when the whole movie had sand in it.
No, but I'm just saying because it was an odd choice.
What
I
other
know-
choice would they make? The
I-
whole movie had sand in it.
I know, but that's like watching any other movie. Okay, it takes place in the jungle, so the 2 main characters have sex, and then it just shows random cuts of the jungle while they have sex. You don't need any of that. It's just an odd choice
And there
to
was-
put 2 frames of dry
And who
sand
said they even
dunes.
had sex? All they did was kiss. They didn't even wake up in the same place.
Anyway,
Who said they went to sleep after?
Yeah. Okay, final questions. Since it's Kurt Russell month, we spent a lot of time on him. Not really. So I want to get a little bit of Kurt Russell. How did you like him in this film overall, compared to Big Trouble in Little China?
Well, I think I already said that I liked him a lot better in this than Big Trouble Little China. Big what?
Who did what now?
Big Trouble in Little China.
Big Trouble in Little China. Yeah, I liked him a lot better than this in like
What?
a serious role.
Big strip down in Little China.
So
Now who's
Take
dirty?
off all his clothes in Little China.
Yeah, really.
See, that-
Now who's dirty?
that makes me wonder, the guy's in the desert, hot as anything, and yet he's wearing full...
Yeah, he definitely was in more clothes
Yeah.
in the middle of this semi-Egypt setting
Yeah,
than
that-
he was in like wherever he was, San Francisco or California or whatever.
Yeah.
He was
Good
def-
thing they had plenty to drink. I didn't see them take a single drop.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. They had those little conch shells they were
Oh
drinking
yeah.
out
I
of.
thought they were like
Several
dead
times.
soldiers' helmets, like folded up, and they were drinking them.
No.
How about you, Britt? How'd you like Kurt?
He was definitely much more bland as far as his character in this movie.
Do you think that was the character
Very-
written that way, or do
very
you think it was him?
stereotypical military-esque character. Not much to say about it.
Yeah.
But did you think it was the script or him that made this
No,
role
I think
so?
it was the script. I think it was the writing of his character.
How about you, Jonas?
Yeah, he seemed bland, but at the same time it showed, like, range for him. So when we saw Big Trouble in Little China, he was the joking guy who was always making the wisecracks. And for this one, he was extremely direct, even if they tried to make him seem a little bit more of an emotional range where he looked like he was ready to kill himself because of his son.
Yeah.
But,
I think he went in heavy on that, and by the end of it, he almost like gave up on being that.
yeah.
Not because he was getting over it. I didn't feel like his character was getting over the death of his son. I just felt like Kurt Russell was just, all right, I'm getting to the end of filming this movie. Let me just do whatever kind of thing. He almost felt like he was bored with his
Oh, thank
character.
God this movie's almost over.
Right. I mean, because at the same time, he could have easily just, if he wanted to stay alive, if he didn't want to kill himself, he could have gone up there with the bomb, give
Yeah.
the finger to the alien as it explodes.
Yes, to the group full of children, too.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, man, not again. And then the womp womp. That would be terrible. All right. What was the other two? What would you change in this movie to make it better for you? Something small, not like the whole cast, or change this to a jungle theme. How about you, Jenny DeAngelis?
I mean, I don't really see how it could have been any different. I mean, I don't see that there was really anything to change.
Nah.
I mean, maybe a little less on the, like, scenes where nothing happened, you know, like walking across the desert or whatever. Like, maybe they could have done without scenes like that. There was just, like, a lot of filler. But as far as everything else that happened, it was all pretty significant. It all led to a certain point.
Yeah. So you like this movie?
I mean, it's not my favorite movie. Don't get me
Okay.
wrong. I mean...
There's nothing wrong with liking it.
It's not like it's my favorite movie or anything. I mean, it definitely is slow moving, and it's definitely not something you can watch over and over and over and over again, like in the same week. But I mean,
So
I do
Cellphone
like
would be
this
out.
movie. I like this movie. I think it's fine.
Okay. How about you, Britt?
I would have liked to see more of an ending, more closure, like them actually arriving back at the Earth Stargate and seeing the old lady again. More closure. What the hell?
Just with all those supporting characters that we saw at the beginning, gave them all a personality, gave them a reason for being there.
Yeah.
Especially with the old woman who had the whole back. She's a kid, her dad's work, and all
Who
that.
gave Daniel the necklace
Yeah.
and said, "Bring it back to me," and then we never see her again. You figured that would be a clue as, oh, we're going to see her again at the end of the movie, and she's going to get her necklace back, and it's going to be happy. No.
No. So, cell phone out in a week?
Yeah, probably.
Janos?
Yep.
What would you also change?
I would get rid of like all of the random cuts that didn't need to be there to make the movie shorter so that it didn't feel as drawn out.
So 2 dry sand humps?
Yep.
Okay.
Or at the very least take that
Replace it with a refreshing oasis.
Yeah.
Palm
even
trees.
Mirage, yeah.
Or flower blossoming.
In real time.
Oh, yes.
But no, I mean, that's copying off Jenny. I think having a more emphasis on the character development as well, and maybe giving everything a sense of time. Like in the beginning, showing Daniel making progress with everything instead of just 14 days just go away and...
Yeah, they mentioned to after the fact. I thought, like, when I was watching that part, I thought it was, one night. I thought it was the same night and he just didn't go to sleep.
Right.
Yeah, it was very subtle. Yeah. I mean, it was there. It just was very subtle.
No, it was.
Took a
I
couple
didn't
of
think
watches.
I didn't think it was subtle. They literally you took in 2 weeks what these people couldn't do in 2 years. So,
No,
there
I
was
mean,
that was a bat subtle.
No, I mean the montage itself was subtle.
There was a
That
montage?
wasn't even
There
a
was no
montage.
montage.
Okay,
That
it
was
wasn't
just him
even-
standing
I
around.
whatever.
I would have liked a montage.
But
Something.
him working on it was subtle.
Mm.
It was very but you could tell he was working on it. It just wasn't very out there. Like it wasn't quite as obvious as it probably could have been. But it was there. You could see him ruffling through the books
He
and
picked
stuff.
up a book, he turned around, he decided he wanted some coffee, he left, and then, oh my god!
Yeah.
Orion!
He was looking at, like, he was
I have a
listening
problem.
to his notes
There's the
and
answer.
stuff.
Uh,
It just wasn't, it wasn't as
I would.
obvious as it could have been.
Out of everything we've watched, this is probably the worst one for me, personally.
You say that
Really?
every time.
This is the worst
Yes,
one after you've seen
I would have.
Killer Clowns from whatever?
He hasn't liked a single one we've done.
I would have rather watched. I would rather watch that. This is too boring for me. So to say I would change something is too. I can't pick. And yes, I would have my cell phone out watching something else, sadly. But what are you talking about? I've liked stuff.
No,
I'm the
right.
only one who liked Rosemary's Baby.
We all liked Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, so I liked something. All right, let's move on.
But you didn't, like, love it.
I loved the last
You
one,
were
Big
kinda
Trouble in Little
indifferent
China.
about it.
Big Trouble in Little China, I
You
liked.
saw that one already. That doesn't count.
Okay.
Wow.
So.
You've only picked ones that you've seen already that you know you like.
Now I'm trying to think of other movies we've done.
That you
Did
haven't seen.
Bunraku, you
Him.
didn't like that
I didn't
one.
like Bunraku. I didn't like Cutthroat Island, but no one liked Cutthroat
You
Island.
didn't really like.
I
You
liked
were kind of
Cutthroat
indifferent on
Island.
Attack the Block.
Yeah. Frank, I ended up liking as I was talking about it.
Yeah, I did too.
But we don't count that one.
Jenny's
so we
changing.
liked.
Jenny's that kid down the street who's like, let's play a game. And the moment you're ready to win, changes the rules.
All right, so you
Suicide
liked,
Squad
you
I didn't
liked
like.
two. You liked two.
Suicide
So far.
Squad I didn't like.
I don't think any of us like Suicide Squad.
No, I don't
No.
think anybody did.
What else was
I
there?
don't know what movie you're talking about.
You didn't like that one so much you blocked it out of your memory.
Frank, Rosemary, Baby. Death Becomes Her. I like Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. I love Troll Hunter. Empire Records was disgusting. Dark Floors was eh. Odd Thomas was eh. Killer Clowns, not really. I really like Secret of Nim. Turbo Kid, I really liked. So I'm like 50% now.
Okay.
For someone who didn't like anything, I'm batting like 50.
All right.
So I'm alright. Alright, the couch is looking good tonight. Well, thank you for joining us here on Someone Told Me to Watch This. If you want to follow us on Twitter, follow us at STMtWT Podcast. Need us on Facebook /STMtWT. And if you want to hit us up with anything we've gotten wrong, which is a lot, email us at stmtwt@gmail.com. Thank you. Take care. She looks good in a half shirt like the... I'm sorry, there's a boat barging.